Sam had never liked crowded places. The spaceport city of Talara Prime was exactly that. Crowded, loud, and full of faces from every corner of the galaxy. Tall insect-like merchants shouted over one another. Robotic porters rolled by with stacks of cargo, and food vendors filled the air with the smell of spices Sam couldn't even name. He sat at a small table inside a quiet cafe near the edge of the port. In front of him was a simple tablet screen, glowing faint blue. He typed carefully, his long fingers moving slowly over the surface. Today, he was finishing an essay for the Galactic Cultural Archive. It was just a hobby, something he did in his spare time. Humans were rare out here, and Sam liked sharing small pieces of Earth's history, traditions, and sayings with anyone curious enough to read them. The essay was short. It was about how, in human history, sometimes the smallest action or the quietest person could make the biggest difference. He ended it with an old human saying, "The smallest voice can change the fate of the greatest empire." He didn't think much of it. He uploaded the essay, paid for his tea, and was about to leave. That was when everything changed. The cafe door slid open with a loud hiss. 4 Kivran royal guards stepped in. They were tall, wearing polished armor that gleamed like wet stone, and each carried a long ceremonial spear. The cafe went silent. The guard's black insect-like eyes scanned the room. "Attention," the leader announced in a voice that carried authority. "We are here for the human called Sam." Sam froze, his cup halfway to his lips. He slowly raised his hand. I'm Sam," he said cautiously. The guard's antennae twitched. "You will come with us, by order of Her Majesty, Queen Vela of the Kivran Empire." Sam blinked. The Queen? He had never met anyone important in his life. I think you have the wrong person," he tried. The leader's mandibles clicked in what might have been annoyance. "We do not make mistakes. You are summoned, immediately." Before Sam could argue further, 2 guards moved to his side. The rest of the cafe's customers kept their eyes down, pretending not to watch. Sam swallowed hard and followed the guards out into the blinding sunlight. The journey to the palace was like walking into another world. The guards escorted him into a black hovercar shaped like a beetle. The inside was silent except for the faint hum of the engine. Sam stared out the window as the city changed from chaotic markets to wide, clean avenues lined with silver statues of past Kivran rulers. The palace came into view, rising like a crystal mountain in the center of the city. Its spires caught the sunlight and scattered it into rainbow patterns across the white stone courtyard. Hundreds of flags flapped in the wind, each bearing the golden crest of the Kivran Empire, a stylized winged insect over a star. Inside, the halls were huge and cold. The floor was polished so well it reflected the ceiling's glass mosaics. Alien servants moved silently along the walls, carrying scrolls, trays of fruit, and strange glowing spheres. Every step Sam took echoed in the vast space. Finally, they stopped before massive double doors made of black crystal. The leader of the guards turned to him. "When you speak, you will bow first. When you are spoken to, you will answer honestly. Do you understand?" Sam nodded. "I guess so." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Do not guess. You will understand." Sam quickly corrected himself. "I understand." The doors opened with a deep rumbling sound. The throne room was breathtaking. It was shaped like a giant oval, with sunlight pouring in from high windows. Rows of Kivran nobles stood along the sides, their shimmering carapaces reflecting every color imaginable. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat the queen herself. Queen Vela was taller than any Kivran Sam had ever seen. Her armor-like exoskeleton was dark green with streaks of gold, and her long, delicate antennae curved upward like the branches of a tree. Her eyes were a sharp, glowing amber that seemed to pierce straight through him. In her four-fingered hand, she held a single glowing tablet. Sam was led to the center of the room. The guards stepped back, leaving him alone in the circle of light that fell from the ceiling. The queen's voice was smooth but powerful. "Who wrote this?" she asked, holding up the tablet. Her words echoed in the room. She pressed a button, and her voice changed as she read aloud, now speaking the human language in perfect pronunciation. "The smallest voice can change the fate of the greatest empire." Sam's stomach sank. That was his essay. The queen rose to her full height, her voice sharpened. "Who wrote this?" The room was silent. The nobles shifted uneasily. Sam glanced around, hoping someone else would step forward, but there was no one else. His legs felt heavy, but slowly he raised his hand. I wrote it," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. The queen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment Sam couldn't tell if she was angry, curious, or something far more dangerous. That moment in the throne room felt like the air before a storm. Sam didn't know it yet, but those words he thought were harmless, had already spread through the Kivran Empire, and the queen's reaction was only the beginning. A soft murmur rose from the rows of Kivran nobles. Their antennae twitched, their voices low and sharp in their own language. Sam couldn't understand the words, but he could feel the mood shift. Curiosity mixed with tension. Queen Vela stood, slowly, her tall frame casting a long shadow over the polished floor. She stepped down from the platform, her movements graceful but heavy with authority. The guards at the side straightened and the nobles went silent. She stopped just a few paces from Sam, looking down at him with those glowing amber eyes. "You are human," she said. It was not a question, but a statement. "Yes, Your Majesty," Sam replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Her antennae moved slightly. "And you claim these words are yours?" She tapped the glowing tablet in her hand. The phrase shimmered on the screen again. "The smallest voice can change the fate of the greatest empire." Sam nodded. "Yes, it's something humans say." "It means—" "I know what it means," the queen interrupted, her tone firm. "Do you know what these words have done?" Sam blinked. I didn't think they would do anything. It was just a thought. I posted it to the archive for others to read, maybe to inspire someone." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Inspire? You call the unrest in my colonies inspiration? You call the defiance of my workers a lesson?" The words hit Sam like cold water. "Wait, are you saying this caused—" "Yes," she said sharply. "Since this essay appeared in our public archive, whispers have grown louder in the streets. Laborers speak as if they are kings. Scholars question my decrees. Even in my own court, some wonder if one voice could topple a throne." Sam's mouth went dry. "That wasn't my goal." The queen paced slowly around him, her voice lowering but growing heavier. "I rule an empire of billions. I hold the peace through unity. Unity demands order. Your words, simple, careless words, are sparks thrown into dry grass. I didn't. No, Sam said quickly. I didn't think anyone important would read it. Her steps stopped. She turned to face him again, her expression unreadable. And yet, here I stand, holding your words in my hand. The hall was silent again. Sam felt like the walls were leaning in on him. Finally, the Queen spoke again, her voice cold but calm. Tell me, human, are these words meant as a threat? To my empire? Sam took a deep breath. No, they're not a threat. They're about hope. Back on Earth, history is full of small voices making big changes, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. It's a lesson about how no one should think they're too small to matter. The Queen's antennae twitched at the word hope. She said nothing for a long moment. One of the nobles, a tall Kivran with silver markings on his shell, stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said in their language, his tone urgent. Sam couldn't understand, but the Queen lifted her hand to silence him. She studied Sam for several long seconds. You speak as if you understand power, yet you come from a world that holds none in this galaxy. Tell me, why should I believe you? Sam hesitated. He had no clever answer, only the truth. Because I'm telling you the truth. I don't want to harm your empire. I just wanted to share something from my people, that's all. The Queen's eyes stayed on him, but her voice shifted from sharp to almost thoughtful. Perhaps you are a fool, or perhaps you are dangerous, without knowing it. Both can be equally destructive. She turned away from him and walked back toward her throne. The guards watched her every move. When she reached the steps, she faced him again. You will not be punished. Yet, she said. But you will not leave this city until I have decided your fate. You will remain under guard, and you will answer my questions when I call for you. Sam felt a small wave of relief mixed with dread. I understand. The Queen raised the tablet one last time. If these words of yours are truly harmless, then you will have no fear in explaining them to me and to my people. If you lie, you will not walk out of this palace again. Sam swallowed hard. I'll explain them, as best I can. She gave a single nod to the guards. Take him to the guest quarters. Keep watch. Do not let him leave without my permission. The guards stepped forward. As they led Sam out, he could feel dozens of eyes following him. Some nobles looked at him with curiosity, others with suspicion. A few seemed almost hopeful. Outside, the throne room, the palace halls felt even larger than before. The light from the tall windows fell across golden banners that hung from the ceiling. Sam's thoughts were racing. How had a simple human proverb reached the queen of an alien empire? Why had it caused so much trouble? And what did she mean about unrest in the colonies? The guard said nothing as they walked. Finally, they reached a wide, circular room with tall doors. One opened, revealing a spacious chamber with a bed, a desk, and a balcony that overlooked the city. This will be your room, one guard said flatly. You may not leave without an escort. Food will be brought to you. Do not attempt to contact anyone outside. Sam stepped inside. The door closed. Behind him, with a soft hiss, he crossed to the balcony and looked out. From here, he could see almost the whole city, the markets, the towers, the distant starships leaving the spaceport. Somewhere out there, his little essay had been read by thousands, maybe millions. And now, because of a few sentences. He was trapped in the palace of the most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy. Sam let out a slow breath. Well, he muttered to himself, that escalated fast. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Queen's eyes when she repeated his words. Not just angry, something else. Something like fear. He didn't know it yet, but her next summons would not be about punishing him. It would be about testing him. The morning came with the sound of a soft chime. Sam opened his eyes to see a servant standing just inside the room carrying a tray with breakfast. The servant, a short Kivran with a pale green shell, set it on the table without a word. Thanks, Sam said. But the servant didn't respond, only bowed slightly and left. The food looked strange but smelled good. Sam ate slowly, his mind still on the events of yesterday. He wondered when or if the Queen would call for him again. He didn't have to wait long. Not an hour later, the door opened and the leader of the royal guards stepped inside. "The Queen summons you," the guard said firmly. Sam stood quickly. "Do I need to bring anything?" "Only your honesty," the guard replied. They walked through the palace halls again, past towering statues and long windows that filled the air with golden light. Eventually, Sam was led into a smaller chamber, not the grand throne room, but an oval room with walls lined by tall shelves of glowing tablets. It felt like a library, but each tablet floated in mid-air, softly humming. At the far end stood Queen Vela. She was not on her throne this time. Instead, she was studying one of the floating tablets. When Sam entered, she looked up and gestured for him to step forward. He bowed slightly, remembering the guard's instructions from yesterday. "Your Majesty." She tilted her head. "Human." "Sit." Sam sat on a low bench in the center of the room. The Queen circled him slowly, her amber eyes fixed on him. Finally, she spoke. "I have read your entire essay," she said. "It is short, simple, but simple words can be dangerous." Sam felt his throat tighten. "Dangerous how?" She stopped walking and looked him directly in the eyes. "Because they can move hearts, and hearts once moved can move armies." Sam tried to hold her gaze. It wasn't meant to start anything. It was meant to make people think. Her antennae twitched slightly. "People are thinking too much. My colonies are restless. Workers refuse extra hours. Students debate my policies in public halls. Traders argue about fairness in the markets, all because they believe one voice, one small voice, can challenge the throne." Sam's shoulders sank. "So, you're saying this is my fault?" The Queen stepped closer. "I am saying you have planted a seed, and now I must decide whether to let it grow or burn it before it spreads." He swallowed. "What do you want from me?" The Queen was silent for a moment. Then she turned away, walking to the shelves. She touched one of the glowing tablets, and it floated toward her. She caught it gently and placed it on the air between them. It hovered there like a living thing. "This is my offer," she said at last. "If you truly believe your words are harmless, then prove it. You will travel with a royal envoy to 3 of my worlds. You will meet my people. You will explain your human idea of hope and change to their scholars, leaders, and workers. You will convince them that your words are not a call for rebellion." Sam blinked. "You want me to give speeches?" The Queen's mandibles clicked. Once, almost like a smirk. "Explain. Teach. Answer their questions. Let them see the human mind behind the message. And if I can't convince them, her voice hardened, then I will know you are a danger to my empire, and you will remain here, forever. Sam stared at her. So either I convince them, or I become your prisoner. You call it prison, she said calmly. I call it removing a threat. Sam rubbed his forehead. All right, I'll do it, but I need to be honest with you. If I meet your people, I can't lie to them. I'm not going to tell them their voice doesn't matter. Because I believe it does. The Queen's eyes narrowed, but she didn't look angry. You are bold, human. That is why I have not silenced you already. Perhaps your honesty will serve my empire, or perhaps it will break it. She turned to the guard. Prepare the envoy. The human leaves tomorrow morning. Ensure he is watched at all times. The guard bowed. Yes, your majesty. As Sam stood to leave, the Queen spoke again. One last thing, human. He turned back. Yes? She held up the tablet, with his words still glowing on it. Do you believe this? Truly? Sam didn't hesitate. Yes. Every word. Her eyes stayed on him for a long moment as if she was searching for something deeper. Then she turned away. We shall see. Back in his quarters, Sam paced the floor. The idea of traveling to alien worlds to defend a single sentence from an essay he had written on a lazy afternoon felt unreal. But the Queen's tone made it clear this was more than a test of his words. If he failed, it wouldn't just be the end of his freedom. It could mean the end of the hope that some Kivran citizens had found in his message. That night, he stood on the balcony again, watching the city lights flicker like stars on the ground. Somewhere out there, people were talking about the small voice that could change an empire. Some probably believed in it. Some probably feared it. Tomorrow, he would meet them. He whispered to himself, almost like a promise. I'm not letting this turn into something ugly. If I can help them, I will. Far away, in her private chambers, Queen Vela stood alone, staring out over the palace gardens. She still didn't know if the human was a danger or a gift. His words reminded her of something she had heard long ago, in her youth, words that had been silenced by the rulers before her. She closed her eyes, and for just a moment she let herself imagine what it would be like if her empire truly listened to its smallest voices. Then she opened her eyes again, her face hardening. We will see, she whispered. The next morning, Sam woke to the sound of the palace bell. He barely had time to eat before the royal guard arrived at his door. It is time, the guard said. Sam followed him through the halls and out to a wide landing platform. A sleek silver transport ship waited, its hull polished so brightly it reflected the clouds above. At the base of the ramp stood 3 members of the Queen's envoy, 2 Kivran guards and 1 official dressed in a long robe of deep blue. The official stepped forward. I am Torvin, he said in the common language. His voice was calm but carried authority. I will oversee your journey and record everything you say. You are to answer all questions truthfully. Sam nodded. I understand. Torvin's antennae twitched. And remember, this is not a game. The Queen's eyes are on you. Sam didn't doubt it. The inside of the ship was quiet and cool. There were no windows, only smooth walls that glowed faintly. Sam sat in a passenger seat, buckled in as the ship rose into the air. He felt the gentle pull as they left the city behind and broke through the thin clouds into the black of space. Torvin sat across from him, reviewing something on a small tablet. "Our first stop," he explained, "is the world of Brynhall. It is a mining colony, rich in metals and energy crystals. The workers there have been restless in recent cycles. Some of them have repeated your words," Sam frowned. "Repeated them how?" "As a challenge," Torvin said simply. "They say if even the smallest voice can change an empire, then perhaps 1,000 voices can change their working conditions." Sam leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "So they're using it to push for better treatment." Torvin looked at him sharply. "You see why the Queen is concerned. Words can become demands. Demands can become rebellion." Sam didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to think yet. When the ship landed on Brynhall, the first thing Sam noticed was the dust. Fine red dust coated the ground, the air, and even the walls of the buildings. The sky had a dull orange tint, and the sun was dim behind, a thick haze. The landing area was surrounded by tall fences, and beyond them Sam could see huge mining machines digging into the rocky hills. Groups of workers, most wearing protective masks, moved slowly between the sites. A local overseer greeted Torvin and the guards but barely glanced at Sam. "The workers are in the assembly hall," the overseer said. "They're expecting you." Sam followed the envoy to a long, low building made of metal panels. Inside, dozens of Kivran miners sat on benches, their shells streaked with dust, their eyes sharp and curious. The air smelled of metal and heat. Torvin gestured for Sam to stand. At the front. "This is the human," he announced. "He will explain his words. You may ask questions." For a moment no one spoke. Then a miner in the back raised a hand. "Is it true," he asked, "that you believe one voice can change an empire?" Sam nodded slowly. "Yes. I believe even one person, if they speak clearly and truly, can make a difference." Another miner spoke, his voice rough. "Then what should we do? We work 12 hours a day. Our pay is low. If we speak, the overseers tell us to be silent." Sam hesitated. He knew Torvin was listening carefully, ready to report his every word. But he also couldn't lie. "I think," he said carefully, "that speaking up is important. But it's not just about shouting. It's about showing why change would help everyone, workers and leaders both. That's how it works best." Low murmur spread through the room. Some miners looked thoughtful, others looked frustrated. One called out, "And if the leaders will not listen?" Sam met his gaze. "Then you have to keep trying. If you give up, nothing changes. But if you push without a plan, you might cause harm, even to yourselves." The meeting went on for an hour. The miners asked about Earth, about how humans dealt with unfairness, about whether protests ever worked. Sam answered as honestly as he could, always careful not to push them toward anger, but not taking away their hope either. When they finally left, Torvin walked beside him in silence until they were outside. Then he said, "You did not tell them to stop their demands." Sam looked at him. "Because I don't think they should stop. They just need to be smart about it." Torvin's eyes narrowed slightly. "We will see how the Queen hears that." Back at the ship, Sam glanced out at the mining fields as they prepared to leave. He could see small groups of workers still talking among themselves. Maybe they would think differently about their situation now. Or maybe his words would just fuel their fire. As the ship lifted off, Brynhall's dusty surface faded into the distance. Torvin sat quietly, but Sam could feel the tension in the air. Their next destination was the world of Solvaris, a center of learning and culture in the Kivran Empire. Torvin explained that scholars there had been debating Sam's phrase in universities and public forums. They wished to know, Torvin said, if this human idea of change is compatible with our traditions. Sam nodded slowly. Then I'll tell them what I told the miners. It's not about destroying something. It's about improving it. Torvin's antennae twitched. Be careful. The scholars may twist your words to their own purposes. The journey would take most of the night. Sam lay back in his seat, staring at the smooth ceiling of the ship. He could still see the faces of the miners, dusty, tired but alert, hungry for any spark of hope. He thought about what the Queen had said. A seed can grow, or it can be burned. Here, far from Earth, in a place he had never dreamed of visiting, Sam's words were seeds. But he didn't know which way they would grow, or if the Queen would even let them grow at all. As the hum of the engines carried him toward Solvaris, Sam knew one thing for certain. The next meeting would be even harder than the first. When Sam stepped out of the ship, the difference from Brynhel was immediate. Instead of dust and machinery, Solvaris was filled with tall crystal towers, bright gardens, and wide streets where Kivran citizens walked in colorful robes. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of flowers. Torvin led him to the Great Hall of Knowledge, a vast building with silver arches and stained glass windows. Inside, hundreds of scholars, students, and dignitaries had gathered. Their shells gleamed under the light, their antennae moving in quiet conversation. This, Torvin whispered, is where words are sharpened into weapons. Sam didn't like the sound of that. The event began with questions from a panel of scholars. They asked about Earth's history, times when small groups had changed the course of nations. Sam told stories about peaceful movements, community efforts, and leaders who had listened to their people. One scholar, tall with golden markings on her shell, asked sharply, "If a ruler refuses to listen, is it right to remove them?" Sam paused. That depends on how they rule. If they harm their people or ignore them completely, then maybe change is necessary. But that change should be done in a way that avoids destroying everything else in the process. The room filled with whispers. Some nodded, others looked troubled. Another scholar asked, "Do you believe our empire should follow this human way?" Sam chose his words carefully. "I think every empire should listen to its people. That's not just a human way, it's a way to survive." The questions continued for hours. Some were thoughtful, others felt like traps. By the end, Sam's throat was dry, but he had stayed honest. That night they returned to the ship. Torvin was unusually quiet. Finally, as the engine started, he said, "You are bold for a human. Too bold, perhaps." Sam glanced at him. "Do you think I made things worse?" Torvin didn't answer directly. "The Queen will decide." When they arrived back on Talara Prime, Sam was surprised to be taken straight to the palace instead of his quarters. The guard led him through dim, quiet halls until they reached a smaller chamber with high windows. Queen Vela stood there, alone, gazing out at the city lights. She didn't turn when Sam entered. "Leave us," she said to the guards. The door closed softly behind them. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of the city. Then the Queen spoke. "You have visited Brynhel and Solvaris. You have spoken to workers, scholars, and leaders. Tell me, what did you see? Sam stepped closer, careful to keep a respectful distance. I saw people who care about their lives, people who want to be heard. They're not trying to destroy your empire. They want to make it better. The Queen turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. And yet some of them speak of rebellion. Do you call that making it better? Sam met her gaze. If they feel rebellion is the only way, it means they think no one is listening. Her antennae twitched slightly, but she didn't interrupt. Think, Sam continued, that if you gave them a safe way to speak and be heard, most of them wouldn't want to fight. They'd want to work with you. The Queen's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. She walked slowly toward her desk, her hands clasped behind her back. You speak as if you know how to rule. I don't, Sam admitted. But I know what it feels like to be powerless. I've been there. She studied him for a long moment, then turned away again. When I was young, she said quietly, my mother ruled before me. She believed in strength above all. She silenced anyone who questioned her. She told me that to rule was to command, not to ask. When she died, I continued her way, and it worked. The empire was quiet, obedient. Sam listened carefully. But now, she went on, I see cracks, small ones at first. Then your words came. And suddenly, those cracks are larger. People speak more. They question more. I cannot tell if this will save my empire or shatter it. Sam spoke gently. Maybe it's not about cracks. Maybe it's about letting in light. The Queen looked at him sharply as if the idea had caught her off guard. Your Majesty, Sam said, I think your people respect you. They don't want you gone. They just want to feel they matter. If you let them speak, even a little, you might gain more loyalty than you lose control. She stood very still, her eyes searching his face. Finally, she turned away and walked back toward the window. You are dangerous, human, she said softly. Not because you lie, but because you speak truth without fear. Sam stayed silent. The Queen's voice grew quieter. I do not know yet if I will follow your way, but I cannot ignore it. Not anymore. A knock came at the door. A guard stepped in. Your Majesty, the protest in the capital has grown. The crowd is in the main square. The Queen's eyes flickered. Protest? Yes. Peaceful so far, but large. She looked at Sam for a long moment, then said, Come with me. They walked through the palace and out onto a balcony that overlooked the main square. Below, thousands of Kivran citizens stood together, holding banners with symbols Sam didn't recognize. They were chanting, not in anger but in unity. They want shorter work hours, the guard explained, and a council to hear public concerns. The Queen's gaze swept over the crowd. A council, she repeated, as if tasting the word. She looked at Sam. If I let them have this, will they stop? Sam shook his head. Not forever. But they'll see you listened, and that matters more than you think. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she turned away from the balcony. Go back to your quarters, human. I have decisions to make. As the guards led Sam away, he felt the air in the palace shift. Something had changed in the Queen's eyes. She was no longer only thinking about controlling her people. She was weighing something deeper. And for the first time, Sam felt that maybe, just maybe, his words were doing more than causing trouble. The sun had just begun to rise over Talara Prime, casting long shadows across the capital's wide streets. Below, the square was already filling with thousands of Kivran citizens. They came quietly but with purpose, holding banners and signs, chanting phrases Sam could not fully understand, but the feeling was clear. They wanted change. Sam stood on the palace balcony beside Queen Vela, looking down at the peaceful crowd. His heart pounded. This was more than he had ever expected. "They seem calm," Sam whispered. The Queen nodded slowly. "For now. But the longer they wait without answers, the greater the risk of anger." Her amber eyes scanned the horizon. "If this protest grows violent, it could destroy everything." Sam swallowed. "I understand." A sudden movement caught his attention. A small group of guards was preparing to move toward the crowd, their weapons visible but lowered. "Are they going to stop the protest?" Sam asked. The Queen looked at him sharply. "If they do, it could spark a riot. But if I do nothing, my rule could be questioned openly." Sam's mind raced. The Queen was caught between fear and hope, and so was the Empire. Inside the palace, the Queen's council debated fiercely. Some urged a harsh crackdown. Others warned that violence would only make things worse. Finally, the Queen made a decision. "I will give them a voice," she said, "but not through force. Sam will speak to them. Let us see if a human's words can calm an empire." Sam felt a sudden weight settle on his shoulders. "Me?" he asked. "Why me?" The Queen's gaze was steady. "Because your words began this. Now you must help finish it." That afternoon, Sam was led to a platform in the center of the square. The crowd fell silent as he stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly, but he remembered the miners on Bryn Hall, the scholars on Solvaris, and the Queen's own doubts. Taking a deep breath, Sam began. "My friends," he said, "I do not come as a ruler or a judge. I come as someone who believes that every voice matters." The crowd listened. The chanting softened. Sam spoke about Earth, where people had struggled for freedom and fairness. He told stories of peaceful protests, of leaders who changed because they listened. "I do not promise easy answers," he said. "Change is never simple, but it is possible. If we listen, if we work together." A murmur passed through the crowd. Some faces showed hope, others were cautious. One elder stepped forward, her shell marked with years of wisdom. "Human," she said, "your words are strange but honest. We want peace, but we want respect too." Sam nodded. "Then let us find a way." As the sun set, the crowd began to disperse peacefully. Back on the balcony, Queen Vela watched quietly. "You did well," she said. Sam smiled, tired but relieved. The Queen's voice grew softer. "Perhaps there is a way to rule with strength and kindness." That night, Sam lay on his bed, thinking. His small words had grown into something powerful, and for the first time, he felt hope, not just for the Kivran Empire, but for all who believe that one voice can make a difference. The morning light spilled through the high windows of the palace throne room. Sam stood before Queen Vela once more, his heart steady but full of questions. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the glowing tablets lining the walls. Today was the day the Queen would decide his fate, and perhaps the fate of the entire Kivran Empire. Queen Vela sat on her throne, her amber eyes calm but serious. "You have spoken to my people," she said, "workers, scholars, and citizens. What have you learned? Sam met her gaze. I have learned that every person wants to be heard. That change is not feared when it comes with respect and understanding, and that the smallest voice can indeed help guide the greatest empire. The Queen nodded slowly. And do you still believe these words? She asked, her voice soft but firm. Yes, Your Majesty, Sam replied. I believe every voice matters, even the smallest one. The Queen stood and walked slowly to the balcony overlooking the city below. She looked at the distant towers and the peaceful streets where people now spoke openly. Your words have stirred much, she said. Some say you have caused unrest. Others say you have brought hope. Sam stepped beside her. Hope can be stronger than fear. She turned to him, a thoughtful expression on her face. For years I ruled with strength and silence. I believed that fear kept order. Her eyes softened as she looked at the crowd far below. But I see now that silence breeds shadows, and strength without kindness is hollow. Sam felt a quiet relief. It's never easy to change, but it's necessary. That day, Queen Vela made a bold announcement to her empire. She promised to form a council where citizens could share their voices openly, to listen as well as lead. She declared new rights for workers, protections for scholars, and respect for every Kivran citizen's opinion. The empire's banners flew brighter that day, not just with the Queen's crest, but with new symbols of unity and hope. Months passed, and Sam remained on Talara Prime as a guest of honor. The small human who once wrote a simple sentence was now known as the voice of change. His message traveled beyond the empire, inspiring others across the stars. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Sam stood on the palace balcony once more. Queen Vela joined him, her expression peaceful. You changed my empire, she said quietly. Sam shook his head. No, Your Majesty, you changed it. I only reminded you that every voice matters. They looked out together at the shining city, a symbol of a future built on respect and hope. And so the smallest voice did change the fate of the greatest empire, because sometimes all it takes is one brave heart to speak and one wise leader to listen.